What's up, everybody? Just played a pretty interesting game. I thought it was interesting anyway. It probably didn't appear that interesting to my opponent, but worked some muscles I haven't worked in a while, and played around some cool scenarios. So I'm going to show you those. The game two was really the interesting one, but I thought started talking about game two recording, and I realized that without the context of game one, a lot of my decisions really don't make sense. So I wanted to show that game too because it takes like no time at all. So I am on the play, and of course I'm going first. This is the opening hand. It looks great. Basically the perfect opener. We have three lands, a mana reducer, a desperate ritual, and this win con could have been like a Serum Visions or a Manamorphose to probably be better, but ultimately like beggars can't be choosers, and this hand is great. I'm going to lead on Island because basically the only decks that play these two lands are combo decks, right? You don't see them in the fair blue decks very often at all. So you want to give your opponent like the least idea that they're about to be stormed upon as you can, because that makes them play differently or set up differently, right? If they think they're against fair blue, they might sandbag something. They might play a little differently than if they think they're about to get comboed. So we're going to go ahead and lead on Island and pass. Our opponent just leading on Shock, Temple Garden, and play a Giver of Runes. This is going to be a turn where we're just going to cast Brawl. The most likely removal that he has showing at this point is Path to Exile, which the green-white Heliod deck doesn't even play. So if he's Heliod, then they play Giver and they play the Temple Garden, but they don't play Path to Exile. So, but even if my Brawl gets Pathed, then I will untap with mana to cast Gifts Ungiven. And if I untap with Brawl, the likelihood that I win is just through the roof. So since the jig is up with Brawl, we're going to play our most efficient land, which is Spirebluff Canal. I've been really impressed with these pathways. The more I play with them, the more awesome they are. You get to dodge Boil with them, which is neat, basically dodging Boil with a dual land. But Storm is usually constricted on one color or the other, and it knows which one it is fairly early. So the idea that you get to play a land that produces blue when you need it or red when you need it is awesome, right? You basically early game like red if you need it, or like late game blue, which is pretty much always your bottleneck. So it's usually going to come down as a river glide pathway, but coming down as a lava glide pathway is relevant, and I do it this league. So I play this on both sides, and it's been incredible. But right now, like I said, since we're playing the Brawl, the jig is up, we're just going to play the Spirebluff Canal. Opponent is going to fetch and shock into an Overgrown Tomb and cast a Wall of Omens. And this turn is pretty much all she wrote. I know he doesn't have anything because all his mana's tapped. Gifts Ungiven with the standard pile of both rituals, Manamorphose, and Past in Flames wins the game here. So I'm just going to let this turn play itself out. The standard gifts pile is made. I don't have to jump through any hoops, although this game does in kind of an interesting way, because although I don't have to jump through the hoops, it actually simplifies a lot. At the end of this chain, I draw Remand, and I'll talk through that when we get to it. But right now, I'm just casting all my rituals. I'm making a whole bunch of mana, yada, yada, yada. I'm going to cast... so the original plan was I was then going to cast Gifts Ungiven, basically get the same pile, do that whole thing again, and then Grape Shot them, right? So it's a lot more clicks, it's a lot more actions, but instead we draw the Remand. So I take a much more conservative line, which also leads us to be open to this Gifts Ungiven line and plays around any like weird shenanigans, right? Maybe he plays main deck Surgicals or something. I don't know. Modern's crazy, right? So if you've never seen this trick, what we're going to do is we're going to cast Grape Shot, and with that Storm trigger on the stack, we are going to remand our own Grape Shot. In this scenario, that does a couple things. We get to loot with Baral because of his ability that whenever a spell is countered, you may spell or ability is countered. You may draw a card and discard a card. So we even get to get rid of one of these lands, which we don't really need. Like, we're winning this turn, right? But it also puts this Grape Shot back into our hand. And since Storm doesn't actually need Grape Shot to resolve, resolve, just all of these grape shots resolve. This is now a grape shot for, since I'm putting this one back into my hand, it's going to be 9, and then the next one I cast is going to be for 12. So I'm dealing 21 damage here. There's reasonably nothing he can do. And even if he messes this up, right, I get to cast Gifts Ungiven for 3 mana. I've still got a land drop available, so that means I have 7 mana total, which is more than enough to do that entire chain that I just showed you the first time I cast the gifts. So this is deterministically dead. Our opponent can have very, very little here unless he like surprises me with a Force of Negation. But this was hot. You'll also see me not play these pathways a lot because especially just the information that they provide, the options they give you are so good, right? Because it's whatever you need whenever you need it. It's functionally a dual land on the turn that you play it, which is just incredible. But for now, I'm remanding this Grape Shot back to my hand. I'm going to draw a card and discard a card. It's not really going to be relevant, and I'm going to Grape Shot them again. So here we go, watching the life total deplete. Oh, we cast it again, and they are dead. Boom. Boom goes the dynamite. Game 2. This is the interesting one. So let's look at my hand. This hand is interesting. I end up keeping it. But the main things I'm worried about is he showed me that black mana, and I'm worried about black mana because that's the color that can interact with us, right? So I'm thinking about cards like Thoughtseize, Surgical Extraction. I'm thinking about that white mana in cards like Thalia and Rest in Peace, and I want a hand that's resilient against all of that, right? This hand is basically Thoughtseize proof. There's nothing in it I want enough, right? And it's one thing if he like Thoughtseize is empty and then Surgical's me, but even that's not that bad because we've still got Grape Shot in the deck. We've got other win conditions, right? And if he's using like 3 cards right off the bat, the land, the Thoughtseize, and the Surgical, to get rid of one of my win conditions, we're tutoring our win cons anyway. I think that's okay. He needs more than that, right? And we've got the Serum Visions to set up. If we draw a mana reducer between like the scries off the Serum Visions and our natural draw steps, like we're going to be doing really well, just finding a few spells and filling it out. So that's going to be, that's where we're at with this hand, and we're going to go ahead and keep. Our opponent also kept 7 cards, just shocked in that Temple Garden, Give Reverence again. This is still pretty easy for me. We're playing the Island, and we're Serum Visions. If you didn't see that first card, it was a remand, if I do believe. It's not letting me go back. It was a remand. I put it back on top or on bottom of my library because I just don't want remand in this matchup. I don't think it's not really something that I like need. I want to get more action. I want to set up and kill them, and this hand isn't good enough that I think I'm worried about protection at this point. So I do put this on top though. So we're going to put that on top and pass the turn. My opponent is going to miss their land drop and just bash me with Giver. This is the moment that I know things are looking great for me. I don't want to take any damage. I don't want to use this pathway yet, so I end up just playing the Oboro, and we're going to jam a Baral, Chief of Compliance. So this does a couple things. If he just like paths my Brawl, I get an extra land, which is great for me, and I just have the extra Brawl. And maybe, you know, if I draw a Gifts Ungiven next turn, I can just go off if it doesn't get answered. So there's a, not necessarily go off, but there's a good chance, there's a chance, right? I just want it in play. It's more mana efficient this way, so we're going to do that. My opponent is going to miss their land drop again. I draw my 3rd Baral. I'm not happy about that, right? Way too many Barals. But also my opponent is falling behind. So I'm making my land drops. I'm pretty content there. I'm glad I kept a hand with so many lands because at least I'm developing my board. If we were just sitting here trading draw steps, I'd feel a lot worse about this. My opponent missing land drops also makes me think like something is wrong here, right? He kept this hand for a reason. Why did he keep this hand? So I'm still thinking about that Surgical. I'm still thinking about that Rest in Peace, right? I'm still thinking about Thalia. He finds a second land, he gets any of these cards. Or he's just holding up a Surgical Extraction, right? Like that's what his game plan is. We go ahead and just play another land, and I'm going to cantrip Manamorphose here just to try to find anything. So we're going to play the pathway. We're going to Manamorphose for red, since that's our bottleneck. We don't have any more of that. And I still just have these empties, and since I'm still thinking, why does he keep this hand? these four goblins aren't going to do anything. They're just going to die to these givers so quick, and I'm still thinking about surgical extraction, so I'm just not going to cast these. And of course, the Barals, not going to be cast either. They just don't matter. These are effectively dead cards in my hand, which is annoying, but you know this is the Storm Life. So we're just going to pass. My opponent again going to miss their land drops. Brutal, but we are also just making land drops. I think again about firing one of these and arrive at the same conclusion. Again, he misses a land drop. So here's where the game gets a little interesting on my side. Again, I don't think my opponent thought this game was very interesting, but I sure did. So here's where I don't just want to run this Gifts Ungiven into a Veil of Summer, right? It would. My hand doesn't have a lot going on, and it would cripple me, right? He's missing land drops. He's going to have to do something eventually. I'm just going to sit on it. So I do. I just play my land, and I pass. My opponent finally finds his land, gets a snow-covered plains. I'm thinking Thalia. Nope, just a Wall of Omens. So hell yeah, opponent. Get that wall, draw your card. I'm going to tutor, and I'm going to tutor quite a bit. I'm going to make the standard pile. So anybody who hasn't seen the standard pile from last game, here it is. Manamorphose, Pyretic Ritual, Desperate Ritual, Past in Flames. If you've never seen this deck before or played against it, just think about the ramifications of any of these cards in my hand. Manamorphose, red, draw a card and float 2 mana. Red, draw. These both are just Dark Ritual in red. With my Baral out, and of course, Past in Flames. It doesn't go in my hand. It doesn't go in the graveyard. It's going to be bad wherever it goes, right? So, that is the pile, and he ends up just giving me both rituals. Fair enough. I draw a Echoing Truth, which is not what I want, but I decide to go for this. There is a small Modo error on this sequence. So when I go to cast Past in Flames, we'll resolve that. But keep in mind that I am trying to play around surgical extraction here, and I think that my best way to do that is by just keeping myself open to just, all right, I'll cast an empty, possibly even 2 empties this turn. So here's how we're going with that. So we're going to start off by casting this Pyretic Ritual. If you are playing this deck, cast your Pyretics before your Desperates. In fact, try to keep a Desperate in hand as long as you can, because the Splice into the Arcane is actually really useful, and it works from your hand regardless of whether you're casting the spell from hand or from your graveyard. So if I had one of these in graveyards, I could splice this into the Arcane for 1 in a red, so when I cast my Desperate Ritual for red, I can pay 1 in a red and reveal this from my hand, and then Desperate Ritual basically says 1 red, 1 red, splice into the 1 red, 1 red, add red, 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 add red, 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 right? So that 1 mana, that 1 ritual for 3 mana becomes 6 mana. So those are usually better in your hand. So you always want to cast your Pyretics first. So we cast my Pyretic Ritual, we get the 3 red, and here's what I want to do here. I go to cast Past in Flames. I want to leave, I want to plan for every weird bullshit eventuality my opponent could have. So I end up I thought a lot about how I wanted to tap my mana and where my bottlenecks were going to lie, right? And I ultimately decided that I need red more than anything else, because if he doesn't have anything, then these Manamorphoses are getting me my blue. And if he does have something, I really need this red for these Empty the Warrens. Keeping in mind I also have a land drop left. That means I'd have 3, 4, 5 mana. I could still only cast one of these empties, but I could, Echoing Truth, Wall, and empty or whatever. But I was expecting some form of interaction. However, what I was trying to do here is hold priority and cast this Desperate Ritual now that I know I'm not going to get my Past in Flames surgical, because again, it's the only one in the deck. If it does get surgical, that kind of sucks, but if he was getting greedy and just waiting till my second ritual to hit Past in Flames, I didn't want to allow him to play into that. So I thought that was a really interesting decision. But then it doesn't register that I'm holding priority, so it doesn't let me cast it, which sucks, because this Desperate Ritual was going to be huge for us, right? I mean, it's 1 more spell. It's also 2 more mana. So that's pretty bad for us that it didn't happen there. But that's okay, right? It's only -1 spell. It's only -2 mana. We're going to make it work, right? But we only have 2 Storm. So we're gonna have to play with that as well, right? Next, we're just gonna cast our ritual out. Yep, cast the pyretic. Gonna cast a Manamorphose. Float blue red. Or no, I'm sorry, blue blue. Because blue is our bottleneck, and we have this other ritual. So we're going to cast another. We're going to cast the Desperate Ritual now, just to get more red in our pool, so that we can cast the Manamorphose. Also, at this point, I have remembered that I only have uh, the one Past in Flames in my deck, and realized that my gifts piles don't work anymore, which is awkward, and I now have to kind of scramble to figure this out. So with the other Serum Visions in the yard and the gifts already there, I'm starting to get into, okay, well, how do I maximize my spell efficiency, right? I thought about casting the Serum Visions, but I thought that maybe if I just blindly draw better, it could be just better for me. So we Desperate Ritual to get more red, and then we Manamorphose. Again, I just wanted to play around every weird thing. So I wanted to have like red in my pool at all times. We Manamorphose here, see what we draw, and float a couple more mana. It's going to be blue blue there, and we draw the Pyretic Ritual rewarded. So we're going to go ahead and Serum Visions, because we've got this ritual. We find a Desperate Ritual and a Spirebluff's Canal. We're going to put those both on bottom, especially since we don't really need another land drop, but we drew one anyway. But neither of those cards are good enough. We don't need more mana. We need a win condition. So effectively what I'm doing right now is just digging, right? I think about just casting Gifts, and I end up doing it, but I had to think about my mana for a minute. So we're going to Gifts again. And this is going to be a pretty awesome pile. So I don't know what you would have made your pile, but what my pile is dig for Grape Shot, right? I have one Grape Shot in my deck. I removed the other one post board. So I made a little bit of a boarding error there, but this is how we recover with the deck. I'm going to get another Gifts Ungiven, thinking, well, I mean, worst case scenario, I fizzle, and then we can try to set up again next turn, right? Manamorphose, just one of the better cards in my deck right now, and it cantrips and also generates mana. Pieces of the Puzzle and Solemnity Visions for more or less the same thing. I really just only need the Grape Shot, and I can't put it in the gifts pile, because if they put it in my graveyard, I am out of ways to get it back. So this is my current library. I've got another piece of the puzzle. I've got another Gifts Ungiven, and then I've got just a whole bunch of air that doesn't matter. And then I've got a Grape Shot. So we're going to try to hit it. So this is my pile, and I give them this pile, and it's an interesting pile. He thinks about it for some time. And eventually gives me Solemnity Visions Manamorphose, which I thought was interesting, because I didn't think you'd want to give me the Manamorphose, because again, it does generate mana and also draws me a card. But I understand also not wanting him to give me Gifts Ungiven, and I didn't figure I was going to get the pieces of the puzzle no matter what. So again, trying to keep red mana in my pool, even though I have another land drop for it, and even though I've got another red here, just trying to be paranoid and cover all my bases. Then we're going to cast this Manamorphose just to draw another card, see what we're going to hit. I'm going to float one blue, one red, because we're really even on it. We've got another land drop that can tap. I'm sorry, the Shivan Reef. We've got another land drop that can tap for either. We've got both lands that can tap for either. I just want to kind of keep us even now, because at the end of the day, I'm like, well, if I need to cast two Empty the Warrens, I guess that's what I'm going to do. Now we're going to Solemnity Visions, and we're going to dig a little bit. These are the cards I see off Solemnity Visions, and I think hard about it for a minute and realize that my best chance, especially with the amount of mana that I have, is still a Gifts Ungiven. So we're going to take a Gifts Ungiven. All right, sorry about that, folks. I ended up hitting the wrong button, and I skipped through the whole end of that turn. So we're going to go ahead and just pick up where we left off. I took the Gifts Ungiven off the Solemnity Visions, and I'm going to cast one more Gifts Ungiven. Maybe it's the last one, maybe it's not. We're going to see what happens here. Again, our deck is getting pretty slim and pretty untraditional. So I don't know what you would make your gifts pile, but I actually had to think about this one for a second. So the four cards I end up going with are Pieces of the Puzzle, Manamorphose. What is it? Pieces of the Puzzle, Manamorphose, Gifts Ungiven, and Desperate Ritual. Because again, I just want to find cards that find me cards. I need to keep going. That's what Storm is all about. I need to just keep going, right? So that's the pile I make. We're going to see what he gives me. Probably not Pieces of the Puzzle, because why would you do that to yourself? Yep. Oh, but he does. He does, in fact, give us pieces of the puzzle. Look, he just doesn't want me gifting anymore. I understand it's a pain on all of us. So we're going to go ahead and cast a Manamorphose to generate some mana because that's all we need. We're going to make red blue, just the standard combination. And then we're going to go ahead and cast pieces of the puzzle because, well, we need to find it, right? So we're going to play a land and we're going to play pieces of the puzzle and we're going to pray. And lo and behold, we hit the grape shot. Hot damn, we dug. We dug so hard. 28 cards in our library. We finally found it. I think the sequencing and the play to get us here was pretty amazing. I think realizing, not to toot my own horn, but like realizing that I had just fucked up by exiling my only Past in Flames and I can no longer make good gifts piles, and then like pushing my way through anyway and just getting deep enough into my library that I've seen enough cards that maybe I'll find it, I thought was pretty interesting. And my process of getting to there I thought was pretty cool. In addition to, I drew poorly. I drew flat out poorly. I have these cards are basically all dead in my hand. This was my insurance policy, but like the way this game played out, and I realized my opponent stumbled, but if he hadn't stumbled, I mean, like, look at this. I have all four of my Barals. I have like a Repeal that's doing nothing. I have an Echoing Truth that's doing nothing, and I have these two win conditions that I don't think are going to be good enough. Because if he just finds a black mana and plays a Plague Engineer, then I'm screwed. But we did find the Grape Shot. We did find the Grape Shot, and we are at Storm 14. So we're going to cast a Desperate Ritual to put us to 15. We're going to cast and Empty the Warrens using this colorless here so we don't have to take a damage, even though it doesn't going to matter, to put us up to 16 spells. And this is a lethal Grape Shot, but our opponent actually just concedes to the Empty the Warrens. So, excellent. Well, I hope if you stuck with that, you enjoyed it. I thought the decision making tree was pretty neat, and the recovery was pretty awesome in game two. So thanks, guys, and have a good one.